How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Is It a Buy, where we talk about stocks and try to determine if they are with a buy or maybe a pass. My name is Corey. I just like to preface the video by saying I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about stocks, so please take what I say with a grain of salt, all right? Guys, today I have something pretty interesting for you. So this is a DD that I found online. Of course, it'll be linked in the description down below. Now, before we get started on this is a very interesting topic. It's about the float of how many shares are being traded. We'll get into the math, and we'll also get into some of the flaws. I don't want anyone to take this as law. Definitely look over the math. I'll go over the math with you and make it very simple. It's easy math, and I'll kind of go over it, and you can take it for what it is. Definitely take it with a big grain of salt. I don't want anyone shouting at the rooftops what's going on, but I think you'll be pretty interested in this. So let's take a look. Let's get started. So first things first. So this person says, first, let's take a look at this. So this is the since the beginning of April, investors have bought 1.48 million shares. Some people in Korea probably owned GME before April, but yada yada yada. So let's look at the Korean ownership, and we'll get into how this is relevant in just a second. So we can see over here about how these are the numbers, and this person kind of breaks it down for us, and they say the light blue priority thing with the number on top shows how much money went into buying these stocks. For Gamestop, this amounts to $840 million, or around $237, right? $237 million. Excuse me. So they go over all of this stuff, and the investment period is from 4/1 to 5/5. So I looked at 4/1 to 5/5, and over here you can see the low was 132, a high of 198. If you take the average, it's about 165. Okay, I already did the math. This person did it even more conservatively. All of these numbers in this DD are very conservative, which I appreciate. And so I'll say most of the numbers at least, and I'll get into what is not conservative or may not be conservative. So if you take this conservative number, they rounded down to 160 instead of 165, okay? And it kind of goes over all of that. So let's take the amount of dollars divided by the average of 160 shares. That equals 1.48 million shares of GameStop. And so you may think 140 or 1.48 million. That is not a lot. But you have to remember, this is only Korea, and Korea probably constitutes a very, very small portion of GME. Okay, now to know how significant this number is, we have to know how much of the float there is. So let's look at the float, and we can see the float is kind of different on different sets. I have 4 sources here with different floats. Some may not be updated, some clearly are not updated, some may be updated. So currently we can see here on Yahoo Finance, the float is 47.75 million. On Finviz, it is 54.16 million. On Market Watch, it is, where's the float? Public float is 56.79 million. And then on Fintel, it is 54.17 million. So let's go ahead and continue. So that's a significant number, right? And so if you do the calculations, again, it's 1.48 million shares of GME during that time frame. Now, keep in mind, so I want to be very transparent with this, okay? Because I don't want any kind of misinformation or anything. I'm just presenting you something that I found interesting. This is not taken into consideration, or most likely it is not taking into consideration, anyone who sold the stock. This seems like if anyone who bought the stock, and we don't know if it was traded then bought again, so the same stock could have been bought several times within this time frame. Okay, so definitely keep that in mind. So so now we know this. So this is pretty cool, right? So theoretically, if we can see how much ownership the Koreans have, for example, if they have, well, we can see here 0.2% of the ownership, and then we can figure out the float theoretically, right? We can figure out how many shares are being owned. If 2% equals 148, well, what does the other percentage mean? Or 0.2%, right? What is the other percentages? So, and we can take a look over here at the geographical ownership. We can see United States and all the percentages and stuff like that, right? And at the bottom of the list, we have Ireland. And so theoretically, this person is saying here that since it's not on this list, the ownership must be less than 0.2%. And so if it is less than 0.2%, then you can see that this number, again, is still conservative. These are conservative numbers. And what they did is they took that percentage and they kind of highballed it, right? Because it's less than theoretically. And you can see that the worst case scenario, there are 740 million shares in circulation. This includes all of these combined. If Korea is 2% of or 0.2% of the float. Now, if that's true, so we can see like the valuation of what each stock share should be like, but I don't want to get into that kind of speculation right now. I just wanted to present this because I think this is extremely interesting, right? Now, I do want to get into some of the flaws of what's going on, but already, I mean, you can see even if the float is all the way up here at I thought something was 70 something million. All right, well, this person did it as a float of 74 million. Okay, which brings each share just to 1,600, just per share, just regular based on the float with what has been going on. Now, let's get into some of these comments, and some of them are pretty relevant. Some of them aren't really so relevant, but are relevant. Let's look at this one. This one says that adds up if there were only 74 million shares in total, and given this figure is correct. So this person agrees with it. Okay, sure. Top comment. Let's go down a little further. How will they be able to pay us? Who can afford this? So this goes back to, and we already know this. I'll be very brief. This is where the DTCC and their insurance policy kicks in if for any reason the hedge funds can't pay. And from my understanding, if the DTCC can't pay and all those guys within there, it would go to I think it's the Federal Reserve, where they would like theoretically have to print the money if they don't have it, but either way, people will be paid however it comes. And so this person said, let's be weird. Let's say that Koreans massively sold. Okay, fair enough. And I don't think people would have bought into GameStop. If you bought into GameStop, you probably know what's going on and you probably intended on holding it. So again, conservative numbers, this would still be 15 times the float. Okay. And now this one is actually pretty important. So this person says, how do you know it is not the unknown category in the part of Asia? Or how do you know it is not in the unknown category as most part of Asia? And this person says, the way I understand the BB terminal, the unknown category is a basket for every nation, and so yes, Korea is in the unknown category, but since it is not in the top 8, it is less than 0.2%. Okay. And now this one is good as well. This one says the calculation for Korean shares is flawed. We did go over this. They said it is not specified whether or not the 237 million that went into GameStop is total transaction volume or net capital additions, if it's total transaction volume. And so it could be the same block of shares being traded around a few thousand times. Okay, so that is definitely something to consider here. Additionally, your math in the 0.2% is flawed as well. Bloomberg includes all call options in their holdings reports under share equivalent values. So you would need to back out the shares related to options before you can get an accurate assumption. So this person says, yes, this is true, and they agree with it. This is OP right here. And they agree with it, right? And, this just goes to show, let's, theoretically, right? Let's say it is 74 million. And then let's say there's 74 million shares, and let's make it easy math. Let's say 74 million is the actual float, right? So, and just to show you on the calculator, let's say it's 740 million. Okay. Let's say divided by, let's say the float, and this is the highest limit of the float. That's still 10 times, okay? 10 times the float that's being traded. Now, I mean, we could even divide this by, let's divide it by 4, just to give it have it be even more conservative. And you can see it would still be, and that's 4 was an arbitrary number, just in case this person is right, saying these things aren't right. They're not calculated by the positions, the options, and different things like that, right? So again, a super conservative, it is still more than 2 times the float, which is just insane. Okay. And, I just want to show you this because, people are, I guess we're kind of waiting for a squeeze and all this stuff. And, I think the time is going to be coming soon where we see if diamond hands is actually what's going to happen. Because whenever the stock starts going up, I think if it gets high enough, people will see, okay, we really do determine the price, or apes really do determine the price individually. And I just want people to know. I want people to be informed that these guys are going to have to cover so much that you really do get to determine the price. You get to determine your price. And I think that's significant. Okay. But that is what I have for you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you did like the content, please consider subscribing. If you did like this video, please go ahead and feel free to like it, maybe even get it shared. I think I've had enough disclaimers in here just to let people know how I feel about it. But yeah, that's what I have for you guys. Thank you so much again. Peace.